Hey guys, how's it going? So today I want to start off by making something pretty. I'd like to walk around the garden, gather up some flowers and branches, and make an arrangement to bring in the house. It's actually chilly out this morning and breezy, of course. So I think it's a perfect thing to do up in the sun porch where it's a little bit more protected. And there's so much going on in terms of beauty and blooms right now. I mean, even beyond daffodils and tulips, which are all looking great right now. But there's also a bunch of trees about ready to burst into bloom, and even in bud stage, they are so gorgeous and bring so much texture and life and color to an arrangement that I thought it would just be fun to show you guys the process I go through this early in the season to make an arrangement. So this is my vessel of choice for the day that I picked up at an antique store or something like that at some point along the way. And then I've got my snips here. I just need to go grab a bucket with a little bit of water. So the first thing I think about when creating an arrangement is, one, how big of branches do I want? Like, how big is my vessel, which in this case we're creating something rather small. And do I want it to be more free-flowing, more kind of artistic, or do I want it to be more rigid? You know, all those things I kind of think about. So framework comes in mind first, in which case I typically look for some sort of branch material. This Korean spice viburnum is looking absolutely gorgeous right now. It's just about ready to burst into bloom. I mean, you can see some of the clusters of buds do have blooms open, but even when they don't, I think they're absolutely beautiful with that kind of salmon pink with the light ballerina pink right below it and the beautiful bright green. And this is going to be perfect for the type of arrangement I want to create, because I want it to be very free and very almost meadowish feeling. So I look for branches with really good shape. So I'm going to cut this one back to this nice little branch here. So I end up with something that looks like this, which, you know, you can kind of think, if I put this in the vase at this kind of angle, I'm going to have a beautiful sweeping branch out one side. So that's kind of what I do for my framework. And I want to get a few branches. Usually it only takes like 3 or so. If you're wanting to create an arrangement that you see from all sides, you may need a few more. This one in particular, I'm putting in a spot that you only really see it from 3 sides, which makes my job a little bit easier. The back doesn't have to look as full and beautiful. So I'm just going to grab a few more branches here so that we can create something awesome. That one looks really good too. And something like this can create a little bit of bulk in the center because it's got branches going out both sides. And it usually, you know, it takes just a few stems of this and that in your garden to create something amazing. It doesn't take a lot of really any one thing. Then we got to have something with a long stem, just in case I want to have something rise above the rest of the arrangement. So the next thing I'm going to grab is just a few stems of this columbine, which is kind of cheating, I'm going to admit. I just planted these, so they've been forced to bloom a little bit earlier than the rest of my columbine. Can't remember, this is a swan pink and yellow, I think. But I think these will bring some amazing color to our arrangement. Look at how beautiful that is. And I think it's going to match the buds. Gorgeous. Oh. Okay. Got a stem or 2 from each plant here. 3. That's what we're going to go with. 3 stems. We've got some pink frost hellebores here. You can see that we're kind of staying in the same location. I've got a lot of really pretty things leading up to our back kitchen door because this is the path that we take the most often. So I always try to pack things in this area that are pretty for every season. So I'm going to just take a few stems of this. And I think these will also blend beautifully with our color scheme we've got going already. So because I have so many blooms right here, I'm going to take about 5 stems. You know what? I'm looking in here and I'm seeing some pink tulips coming up. And there is a cluster kind of back behind the fountain. And I'm just going to grab a couple of tulips. I don't want to take too many because I don't have that many in this spot. Just that little texture coming up will be really pretty. And see, when I take 2, you can almost not tell that I took anything from this little patch. Let's head to the front garden. So we've got some Erlenmeyer daffodils right here. I had a huge stand of these at one point, and this is the only daffodil that hasn't really naturalized and stayed for us, which is okay because they are fairly high in the fragrance department, and when I add a couple stems into an arrangement, I don't really notice the fragrance. If I add a bunch, it's a little bit too strong for me, but I think that this will give a beautiful, almost hydrangea-esque appearance and texture into this arrangement. Aren't they beautiful? And now look at how they complement the other flowers. We've got a little bit of color in the interior of the columbine, interior of the hellebore, just beautiful. So I'm thinking 3 stems. Russell, you're kind of, what are you doing, bud? Okay. So this is our front lawn that we're about ready to excavate completely to put in a new garden and new grass. But there's still some really beautiful things underneath this crabapple tree, which is staying. These are some, I think they're called snowbells. I can't remember. We'll put the name on the screen because they are coming up beautifully for their 2nd year in a row. I wasn't sure how they do. They look like a giant snowdrop, but with daffodil-like leaves. I love how their blooms have this downturning motion, and these will bring a wonderful texture to this arrangement, like a delicate look to the arrangement. So I'm just gonna grab several stems. This is a climbing rose called the Generous Gardener. It's not in bloom, but it still has beautiful brand new leaves on it that have that bright green, but also the red on the bottom. So I'm gonna use these as kind of a filler because I feel like I'm gonna need something with some weight toward the bottom of the arrangement. So I'm just gonna take, these need to be pruned off anyway, so I'm gonna take quite a large branch here. Yeah. I think the pink with the hellebore pink and the color of the hellebore stems, it's all gonna come together beautifully. This will bring some wonderful movement into, depending on how we decide to structure the arrangement. Things kind of start to evolve as you start to build as well. This is another area we're about ready to redo when we get our greenhouse put in. We've got some beautiful brownie tulips in this area. Look at how full and gorgeous that flower is. And I think, yeah, that'll bring a little bit of drama, I think. A little bit more punchy color than the rest of our flowers. So just a few of those. We only really have a few to take from that are good here. It's a nice little delicate one. I think that that's all we're gonna need. Our vessel is not that big. It's kind of surprising how many things you can fit in an arrangement. But let's head up to the sun porch and then we can start the construction process. So we're in the sun porch now. It's a little bit more protected from the wind out there. I've got my vessel right here. It is watertight. That's something that you want to check on, especially if it's got handles that come through, which this one does, and it's got like little bolts. I'm not really sure exactly how it's attached, but it is watertight. I do have a small piece of floral foam in here, which I typically try not to use floral foam, but in smaller containers that prove to be a little bit difficult to get things to stay in, it works the best. Otherwise, I usually use a kind of folded up piece of chicken wire. I'll use branches. Sometimes I'll do a grid work of tape over the top, but I have designed in this vessel before, and it's just easier to use this very small piece of foam. So anyway, that's already been pre-soaked. It's got floral preservative in the water, and the water is room temperature, and you want to make sure that the water is clean. So those things are important to do beforehand. I also have my snips, which is what I used out in the garden to cut all of this stuff. I tend to like using snips rather than my bigger Felcos. These are Felco 321s because they do finer work. And when you're doing floral arranging, it's easier to get your snips around, you know, what you're working on than it is to get larger pruners. So anyway, whatever you're using, you want to make sure it's sharp and clean and so forth. So the first thing I do when I design, and let me preface this whole thing by saying I'm not a professional. It's just something that I have fun doing, and I like to practice. And I feel like sometimes my arrangements turn out really beautiful and I really like how they turn out, and sometimes it's a total fail and I'm like, oh, I need to take that apart and do it again. And there's no shame in that. That way you get to do it twice and it's like double the fun. So in this one, I kind of want to create this more natural flowing type of arrangement, which is kind of how my style leans anyway. I don't like really tight, stuffy things very often. Unless it's like one group of like hellebores or one group of peonies or roses that you just plop down in a vase, and that always looks really cute. It's kind of like a tighter little posy. But this one here I want to have kind of be meadowish. I have no idea if it's gonna turn out that way or not. I'm gonna start with my rose branches first because they have the most bulk. So let me fish them out of the bucket real quick. Oop. So to prep my rose stem, what I'm gonna do is just remove, like there's some dead leaves from last year on there. I just toss everything on the floor and sweep it all up when I'm done. I remove any leaves that might fall below the surface of the water that can cause bacteria, and that's not something you want. It will shorten the vase life of all of your flowers. So we're just doing some general cleanup, cutting some tips that don't have any leaves on them. Once I get this in the vase though, because it's so thick, I may end up cutting a few of the branches out anyway, but we'll start with all the kind of crummy looking stuff first. I will also trim off all of the thorns. Oh, that's much easier to deal with now. See how easy and quick it is to do with snips? Get in there really easily. And then I'm going to insert this stem kind of at an angle. So I'm going to cut my rose stem. Typically I cut up the stem a little bit so it drinks up a little bit more water. And we're just going to pop it in. And just draw this one out underneath the handle. See how we already have some beautiful movement to this arrangement? I just love it. So now I'm going to create something out this side with my other rose branch. How tall do I want to go? Same prep involved here. However, I do think I am going to cut this lateral branch off. I may end up using it. Yeah, in fact, let's just pop it in. There we go. Now, I don't want my arrangement to really feel like, you know, I kind of want to bring some movement upward, and I think this will do it. Okay, I'm gonna come around and take a look. Oh yeah, that is oh, there's a spider. See, we've got a little spider friend here. Okay, go down onto the floor. There you go. Okay, spider has been saved. So the first few branches you put in, this is just 3 stems of rose leaves. It really will dictate how the rest of your arrangement will flow. So you really want to make sure that you like the way it looks before you move on. And I feel like this is really pretty. So now I'm going to work in a few of those viburnum branches. Ah, what was that? Oh, tulip down. I think I might just leave this one a little bit taller. With woody stemmed items like this one, I usually make a cut and then I cut up the stem. Some of them you can crush, like with a hammer or something like that. You just crush the end and it just opens up more surface area for water to draw up. That usually helps my arrangements out a little bit for the woody stemmed items. Gosh, that's so pretty. These are so beautiful. This one I want to have come straight out the side here. So this one's got a beautiful shape. If I put it down in the vase right here, it'll kind of spill out the side. We may not need that much interest on this side because of the roses, but let's take a look here. I think that'll probably look really beautiful. Maybe I should come take a look. Oh gosh, that is so pretty. I think I need a little bit of that same interest drawn down right in here. So we really haven't even put in any of our flowers yet. And it already looks so pretty. So with our first brownie tulip, I'm going to tuck it in the front, right here. That automatically brings some beautiful weight. And doesn't that color look beautiful with the rose leaves? And now some taller interest right up in this area with one of our columbine. I want it to feel very natural. I don't want it to feel like, and I feel like it's looking like that already, because when you can see some stems rising above and the shape isn't like perfectly uniform, I feel like it already takes on kind of that meadowy look. Now another one for this space right in here. It needs to tip a little bit more, I think, like that. I might have to adjust that a bit. I have a feeling it needs to be more here. Just go ahead. And our third stem right here. Now I'm going to incorporate a few of our pink frost hellebore blooms right here. And I know that it can be a little bit of an issue to get these to stay nice in the vase. A lot of times they just go really soft and limp after a few hours. I actually just learned this trick from Klaus Dalby, who has an amazing page on Instagram, super inspiring and full of great information. But what he does is, first off, once you've cut them in the garden, you put them straight in water like we did. So we are going to prep this one for the vase. This is going to be a little bit too low, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. What you do is you make a fresh cut, and then you take a knife, or in this case, the snips will work great. You make a cut down the length of the stem, not all the way down. Leave a centimeter or so at the bottom, and that will help it draw in more water. And then you want to put it right into your arrangement, right into the water. And that will keep them nicer for a lot longer. Typically, I don't have a huge issue. Like if I make a bouquet of hellebores and I just make a single cut at the bottom without cutting up the length of the stem, I'll have like 9 out of 10 of them will be nice in the vase and they won't flop over. But on occasion, I'll have one of them not take very well. And that can be a bummer, especially in a very like arrangement. You don't want one of your pieces to start flopping because it will affect the whole design. And then also a word about daffodils. So every time I put a daffodil in an arrangement, I get comments and questions as to whether or not that's okay, because you hear that daffodils have something in them that poisons other flowers that that they emit into the water. And while that may be true, and like I said, I am not a professional, I have been putting daffodils in mixed arrangements for years with not ever a single problem. I didn't even know about that. So I asked my mom, who was a florist for years, and she was like, I've never had a problem with it either. So we have both used daffodils in mixed arrangements with no adverse effects. Don't take that to the bank. That's just my personal experience right there. Put this in the front here. I still have quite a number of flowers to add into this arrangement, but this is the last variety right here that I'm going to be using, the snowdrops, which are gorgeous. And then what I'll do is I'll probably speed up the rest of the arranging process now that you've kind of seen the framework go in. But look at how beautiful adding this kind of dangling, delicate texture is. It's just so wonderful. So this is what's left in my bucket, quite a few flowers yet. So we'll just continue arranging, speed up this process, and then I will show you the end result here in just probably a couple minutes. Well, I'm going to call it good with this arrangement because I used every last stem that I brought in here, which it always surprises me how much you can fit into a small arrangement like this. Of course, it's all personal preference. You can leave more space between things if you want, but this is basically how I go about it. I go out into the garden, kind of pick some complementing things that I think look really good together. Sometimes I'll go for like very contrasting looks, but most of the time I kind of like things to look very blended and cohesive in the color department, and that's what you get here with the viburnum buds with all the pinks in here, and there's some subtle yellows and a little bit of creamy white, and I think it all works really well together. And then I typically create my framework first, and then I start filling in with bigger flowers, which usually end up kind of around the base of the arrangement, kind of tucked in a little more, and then fill in with some kind of more whimsical, smaller flowers out toward the edges of the arrangement. Everyone kind of takes on a little bit of a different flavor though, so it's not like a exact science, I guess, and it shouldn't be. It's all personal, it's all unique to how your style is, and you can fuss with these things for a long time. And like I said, sometimes I put things together that I like at the moment. Like I like this one in the moment, but I might look at it in a couple hours and be like, oh, I think I want to move this flower to that side of the arrangement. And that's kind of part of the fun for me. So in terms of care, I top them up with water every day. If something looks like it's starting to wilt a little bit, I'll either use my clippers and just clip it out. If it's sometimes like when you have a branch framework and you need to get one of those branches out, it's really difficult to do that because you've got a bunch of other flowers kind of connected. Like it's kind of a gob once you get it in here. You can just clip them out and put something new in if you need to, or just, pull it out gently. But usually, like all of these things will probably last about the same amount of time. I'll probably get a good week out of this arrangement, especially if I keep it topped up, maybe even a few days longer. So anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.